Howdy folks, Shell Presto here with another Sketch and Chat, where I share my ordinary, everyday drawing sessions, as opposed to showing a whole polished, finished piece from start to finish. Today, we have a viewer question. David, who is awesome, asks, how do you know when a picture is done? I've been trying to get back into a bit of visual art, as much for the therapeutic value as attempting to reawaken lost skill sets. And I've run into that problem again. I never know when something is done. So let's talk about how to know when a piece is complete, while I draw a young woman being surprised by a griffin. And if you're wondering what drawing cats has to do with drawing griffins, a griffin is an eagle head and wings on a lion body. So drawing cats is an excellent way to figure out how a griffin's anatomy would work. Especially because cats are real and easy to get pictures of, and I could not find any griffin reference photos taken from life. Seriously though, the best way to draw mythical animals is to do a lot of quick sketches of real-life animals with similar anatomy. I drew a lot of cats and lions and eagles before starting to draw Peck here. That's the griffin's name. Things like dragons may seem a bit harder, but if you pick something that moves similarly, it will still help immensely. I think ferrets, with their long necks and tails, who move low to the ground, but not so low as, say, a lizard or crocodile, are excellent resources for a dragon. But that's not today's topic. I'm going to present to you 3 questions that you can ask yourself when you feel like a piece is nearing completion, and you're wondering if it is finished or not. If you answer yes to all 3 of the questions, then your piece is probably done. The first question is, does the artwork accomplish what you wanted it to accomplish? There are different reasons for drawing. If you're doing it just for fun, this is usually easy to tell. If you wanted to draw a flower for spring and there's a flower on the page or canvas, congratulations, you accomplished what you wanted. You can move on to the next question. But if you wanted to draw 2 characters who like each other eating lunch at a diner, well, your checklist is longer. Do the characters have the physical characteristics they should? That is, do they look how they're supposed to look? Do their expressions convey their feelings for each other? Or do you need to adjust the eyes, lips, or eyebrows to get the point across better? Have you included enough background details so the viewer knows without being told that they are at a diner? This last one is important because it's easy and tempting to skimp out on a background. Because they're hard and who's really going to notice, right? Well, the viewer will notice if they can't tell where the characters are, but they're supposed to be able to. Maybe salt and pepper shakers and a napkin holder on the table and an off-brand Coca-Cola sign on the wall are all that you need to get the point across. That is, it doesn't take much to get the point of your background across, but a drawing can feel lacking without one. If a character is on the beach, maybe you only need a soft gradient from deep purple to bright pink behind them with a red sun over their shoulder to get that across. You need to be honest with yourself and assess what the entire story is behind your picture, and then ask yourself if the picture clearly shows that. Maybe you're doing a still life drawing with the intent of having it convey a feeling. For example, maybe you're drawing a cup of coffee and you want the image to feel inviting and comforting. When you look at it, does it give you that feeling? If it doesn't, examine the colors you used. For example, blues can feel very calming, but too much blue can feel depressing. But a little bit of blue or dark purple can mellow out a drawing and make it feel peaceful. Browns can be at once warm but still calming, especially when they tint a little on the red or orange side. A muddy green-brown can be dreary. Reds can be exciting and lively, but can also seem jarring or violent. Maybe you made that warm, inviting coffee cup red, but it's too red. Adding a hint of brown, or if you're painting, adding a touch of green to your red paint, which will tone it a little closer to brown, can bring it down to where you want to be. What I'm trying to say is that color says a lot and can really affect the tone of your piece. So you should consider color carefully when you're trying to assess if a painting accomplishes what you want it to. And color is doubly important in abstract work, because often in abstract paintings, color is what's speaking clearest to the viewer, since the lines and marks on the canvas aren't conveying a literal image or idea. If you're doing a commission or illustrating a book, as I often am, or creating a logo, you've got an outside set of criteria to follow too. You'll have a checklist that you need to do that is dictated by the client, or what the story says, or what the business does. If you're drawing someone's Dungeons and Dragons character, their character sheet will tell you their character's race and equipment. You don't accidentally want to assume that someone's barbarian is a dwarf when they're a halfling, or not realize that the character uses a bow and draw them with a short sword instead when they don't even carry one. For this illustration, I've drawn Mary Jo in a book before, and Peck looks remarkably like the Promethean's cane, which was also shown in our book Copper Knights and Granite Men. So I have to make sure they match up to their previous published references. Likewise, this is based on a story, so I need to include things like, when I get to the background, making sure there are multiple doors visible, since it takes place in a hallway with a ton of doors, and adding a bandage, a ripped shirt sleeve around Chemistra's leg, since she was injured in the previous scene. If I forgot any of these details, I wouldn't have fully accomplished what I set out to do. Okay, so your drawing visibly accomplishes what you set out to do. What else can make a drawing look incomplete? I've said it in a previous video, and I'm saying it again. Does the drawing have enough contrast? There are really obvious things that can be wrong with a drawing that just take more practice, like if the eyes aren't lined up correctly, or a mouth is too wide, or arms or legs are too short or long. You know, anatomy things that you just have to practice. But aside from that, the biggest tell between a time-tested artist and someone closer to the beginner side of things is contrast. Contrast is the difference between the darkest mark on your page and the lightest mark on your page, and how many shades are in between if you're working with colors and grays instead of black and white. For good contrast, you want there to be not necessarily pitch black and stark white, but we'll say at least dark charcoal gray, or if you're using colors, a deep indigo, royal purple, or maroon, or whatever color you're using, a dark shade of, and a winter sky gray or blue or light carnation pink, etc. But unless you're going for an effect like one candle and therefore one spot of light burning in a sea of darkness, you also need a balance of those lights and darks. For example, if you're working in black pen or black ink on white paper, you may think you're in the clear. You've got black and white. Instant contrast. You win. But just having a super dark color and a super light color is not enough. You need a good balance of those. Now, if you're inking so you can color a piece later, it's fine to just have the outlines inked and be very sparse. Or if you're doing, say, a character reference turnaround. But if you're using ink with the intent of creating a finished, polished piece, and you are only inking the outlines, and the use of black looks sparse, then your piece is unfinished. Maybe you need some thicker black lines on the undersides of some lines, like the bottom of the feet, the inside of the thighs, below the armpits, and on the neck below the chin, places there would be more shadow. That thicker line width will add weight and contrast. Even better is to put some larger areas of contrasting black. If the character has dark hair, fill it in instead of just doing the outline, but remember to leave some white highlights. If the character is wearing anything that is a middle shade or darker, like bright red or green or purple shirt, consider filling that in black as well. Even better if you use some hatching or cross-hatching to give the illusion of gray gradients. Now, when you're working in color or with grays instead of black and white, I've heard you should strive for 5 tints, that's lightness, or shades, that's darkness, in a piece. 5 variations of lightness or darkness in your artwork. So if you can look around in your piece and pick out some really light areas, some really dark areas, and 3 variations of light and dark in between, then your work is probably looking pretty polished. Contrast can also be created using colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel, like red versus green or blue versus orange, but that's a different discussion. However, it does merit saying that if you have a painting of red roses and they don't pop the way you want them to, putting a dark green background might give you the effect you want. Or if you're drawing a purple eggplant, a soft cream wall for a background with a touch of yellow in the cream may give the eggplant that touch of liveliness you were looking for. Even better if you add a touch of yellow in the shiny white highlight on that eggplant itself. I don't know that I'd add green to a rose's highlight, though, since that's adding a cool color to the highlight on a warm red. That would probably be counterproductive. You could, however, add a touch of dark green to the shadow on the rose. Something to think about. So your art has enough contrast. What's another factor? Well, detail is another factor that can make a piece incomplete. Have you added enough detail at the focal point of the drawing? Not all drawings or paintings have to look detailed. You don't have to draw every leaf on a tree, or every indentation in a character's knuckles, or every hair on a cat. But you should strive to put a little more detail at whatever is the most important element of the drawing, the thing you want people to notice the most. If it's a person's face, you may draw the eyelashes in carefully and add some detail in the irises to draw the viewer's attention there first. If it's a cat, give special attention to the hair around the face, but make the lines looser or painting blurrier near the tail and feet. Remember, things in shadow and darkness don't have as much detail as things being hit directly by light. Your eyes just won't be able to see the detail and differentiate in darkness. A cat's stripes will be much less prominent closer to the floor where there's shadows on their legs and such. If you're drawing a pineapple, maybe you make the diamond pattern much more prominent near the top where there's a lot of light, and muddier close to the bottom. This lets you pick where the viewer's attention goes and gives you the option of not detailing the unimportant parts of the piece if you don't want to. You know, when you're browsing really nice photography and you notice that whatever's in the foreground, like a person, looks very sharp and crisp, but the background may be blurry. Or there's the common filters on sites like Instagram that just blur the edges of the photo. Your eye automatically does that when you look at something. So you can actually use that technique in your piece, just, detailing one specific part of it. Or you can detail the whole thing. A lot of Renaissance paintings and actually a lot of fantasy art, classic fantasy art, we'll say, from around the 70s did this, adding a lot of detail everywhere so you can just get lost in the piece and look around and around and around. But the key to either of these is that there is at least some part of the piece that is more detailed than the rest, where it draws your eye in first. I think those are the big 3 questions. But there are other little things you can do to make sure a painting looks finished. For example, did you add a shadow below the person or object that you were painting? That's a little touch that adds a lot of weight and realism, even if you leave the whole rest of the painting white and don't add a background. Did you add a little bit of white highlight in the eyes or on the edge of the flower petal catching the most light, or in the light reflecting off the windows of that building you're drawing? Little touches like that can add a lot of liveliness. But those also tie into the big three a bit too. The really nice part about these questions is that they work for all skill levels. Even if your anatomy is off, or you can't get those flowers to look exactly right, or your perspective is a little bit wonky, your piece will still look better if it has contrast and adequate detail. And I use it as an example a lot, but XKCD and Peanuts, that is Snoopy, aren't the pinnacles of realism, but they tell the story they want to tell, and people love them for it. Just so you folks know, the scene I'm drawing here with Mary Jo being scared witless by Peck the Griffin is for the sequel to my and my husband's first Challenger Confidential book, Copper Knights and Granite Men. It's a novella with about one illustration per chapter by yours truly, and Mike and I wrote it together. We liken the series to a dysfunctional Fantastic Four mashed together with old-school Hammer horror films. It's an action-packed heroic adventure that's both funny and a bit scary. If that sounds at all up your alley, please consider checking it out at ascensionepoch.com, amazon.com, or other online booksellers. Of course, book purchases help me, and therefore the channel, out. So there you go. Ask yourself if the drawing accomplishes what you intended it to accomplish, if there's enough contrast, and if there's enough detail at the focal point. If the answer to all three is yes, your drawing is probably done. If it's no, well, go back in and touch up what you need to. Or, if you can't fix the issue, just take what you've learned and try to apply it to your next piece of art. Because that's the joy of drawing. There's always a clean white page in the future and another opportunity to create something even better than your last piece. If you liked this video, please give it a like or thumbs up, and please consider subscribing to see more art from me. I do videos with art advice like this, videos where I more closely talk about my drawing methods, and some videos where I read stories or parts of them. Also, do you have any other questions you ask yourself to decide whether a piece is finished or not? Because I'd love to hear them in the comments. Or any topics you want me to cover in future videos. Most importantly of all, though, have an awesome day, folks. Presto, over and out.
Holy birdshot! What sort of abomination is this? No such thing as griffins my furry behind. What did they do to you, poor brave cat? Lob off your head and sew on a hawk's? Did they let you keep your superior cat brain? Well, the wings are cool. You can chase down birds. But is it morally acceptable for you to eat them anymore? What about cats? Hawks eat cats! Warn Mike and Shell to get him out of here. He's too small to eat us. Is your head the hawk who took my brothers? I will have my revenge. He has wings. How will you catch him? You can't even get up here. I will build a flying machine. Good grief, I'm surrounded by idiots. No, wait, you're right, Algernon. You must get revenge and build your flying machine. Now this I gotta see. Hey, where's Volando?
What is that thing, Precious? Oh, make it go away, make it go away.